Hey everyone, Jeff Kenny here, Museum and Archives Manager for Culver Academies. I'm standing here in the Culver Academies Museum and Gift Shop, which this October 2019 we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. It's hard to believe we've been open now for 10 years. Of course, telling the story of Culver's rich history here and preservation of that history didn't begin here 10 years ago, and it didn't begin with me. So the genesis of today's Culver Museum and Archives in many ways goes back to my mentor and predecessor, the late Robert B.D. Hartman, who began collecting and preserving Culver history, partly at the urging of the late Richard Ford, a summer school alumnus and noted philanthropist who supported Bob's initial efforts. And as planning revved up for Culver's 1994 centennial, so did Bob's efforts at collecting, with the support of then Superintendent Ralph Manuel, along with, of course, writing, speaking, and generally propagating Culver's rich history on Bob's part. As Bob Hartman retired at the end of the centennial period, his dream had been to create a museum, which he did do actually. It was located in the upper levels of Culver's former armory building and was open to the public in 2003 as Bob returned to Culver as its first historian, with the support of head of schools John Buxton, alumni director Alan Lair, and others. Along the way, thanks to the generosity and vision of Culver parent Michael Chesky, I was able to join Bob's efforts, specifically in creating Culver's digital vault, which allowed us to propagate Culver's history virtually in the form of thousands of pages of yearbooks, student newspapers, and more, which has been helpful particularly given our remote location. Then, 10 years ago, in 2009, Culver was very fortunate to see Bob's vision meld with that of Jim Dickey II, 1959 Woodcraft Camp graduate and member of the CMA class of 1964, who facilitated the presence of a Culver Museum in downtown Culver, which also offered a retail component and put Culver's story out into the broader community in a dynamic way. Through the past decade, we've been fortunate to have great support from alumni, including a strong volunteer corps, from our wonderful docent and retail staff person Michelle Jancy, and more recently from Tony Mayfield, class of 1965.
Hello, I'm Tony Mayfield, been with the Academy 46 years, former director of the summer camps and schools, and now having the opportunity to work here in the museum with Jeff Kenny. It's a pleasure. You can see we're a place that houses and records years and years of history.
A handful of years ago, the long-term vision of really collating and gathering and protecting Culver's history was brought closer to fruition as we pulled together materials from various less-than-ideal on-campus locations. Culver purchased a building next door to the museum and set aside the space for the school's archives. As you can see here, we house a wide array of everything from vintage uniform items to films, hundreds of thousands of photographs and negatives, to the thousands of pages of history which our late, great Mrs. Elizabeth Davis helped maintain in her decades of service. Obviously, the Culver Archives here is a massive undertaking. It's a work in progress. And we're very fortunate to have wonderful support from the academies, which provides the financial support for us to operate and maintain our two facilities. Donors, not only those who have provided endowments, but also those who have populated our collections, are so important to the ongoing vitality of this mission. Of course, as most of you know, there really are so many wonderful and at times just amazing Culver stories, and we continue to unearth new ones with some frequency here at the Museum and Archives. And of course, we generate new exhibits, new means of telling those stories on an ongoing basis between the museum itself, the digital vault, and the Culver Academies History Facebook page. So here's a tip of the proverbial hat to our donors and the many, many of you who have shared your Culver treasures with us over the years, and those who have visited and connected with these efforts on whatever level. Thanks to all of you, we look forward to many more years of the Culver Academies Museum, Gift Shop, and Archives.